227-year history of broken hips in my family. 227 years ago, in 1798, a female ancestor of my father's fell and broke her hip. She died shortly after that, leaving behind 9 motherless children. Fast forward, when my older sister was 10 years old, she broke her hip jumping from bed to bed. Another sister in her 20s suffered a broken hip during a car accident. And then finally, to wrap it all up, my mother fell when she was on vacation in a kitchen and broke her hip at exactly my age, 61. So I'm doing this live today to just talk about the things I'm doing, especially the things I'm doing as a fitness trainer and someone who has trained women for many years, and many of them over 40, 60, 70 and beyond, and new research that shows us how important exercise is, and the fact that bone and metabolism affect each other. Most important thing I want to share is the 3 methods of exercise that are the most effective for preventing breaks and for not just taking care of bone density, but bone quality. And those 3 kinds of exercise are weight-bearing exercise, which would be dance, walking, aerobics, basketball, tennis, walking when you're golfing, if you're not riding in a cart, anything where you're on your feet and there's some impact in your exercise, so your aerobic exercise. And the second one is resistance training. One of the things I'm just understanding from my very recent research, I did not know this, is that even though I'm a trainer, is that skeletal muscle is the largest endocrine organ in the body. That the muscle that's proximal, that's closest to the bones, that the motion of the muscle and its contact with bones, the contractions of that muscle, send signals to the bone that are symbiotic. And so when we're training, when we're doing our weight-bearing exercise, definitely when we're doing our resistance exercise and we're contracting our muscles against the bone, that's sending really positive messages back and forth to the bone and to the muscle. And then the third one is flexibility and balance. And the flexibility and balance might not have quite as much of a direct influence on the bone, but they have a direct influence on keeping us from falling in the first place. There's an old saying, my sister, who's 10 years older than me, she's retired now, but she's an orthopedic nurse. And so her area of specialty was working in hospitals, replacing total knees and total hips. And there's an old saying in the medical community among doctors and nurses that men have strokes and heart attacks and end up in the hospital and then die. Women fall and break their hips and end up in the hospital and then die. And I'm sorry if that's a little bit dark, but it's this idea that we see a lot of, we lose a lot of our male loved ones to heart attacks and strokes, and we lose a lot of our female loved ones to they fall, they break a hip, and then from there they deteriorate and pass away, just like my ancestor in 1798 did. I don't know. I don't know what that word means, so I'm just going to keep going. All right. So the first thing we've talked about is the weight-bearing exercise. So dancing or tennis or basketball or all of those things. And then the resistance exercise, and then flexibility and balance. But the most important question that I have is, how do you get people to want to exercise? How do you get them, not just in the gym, but most of my exercise equipment is set up right here in the office. I'm looking at it right now. How do you get people willing and eager and ready to exercise? And so one of the things that I've used with my clients and students and readers for years is this idea of self-selected intensity, that whatever you do, whether you're doing any kind of aerobic exercise, and my favorite weight-bearing exercise is Tabata training or Tabata training and metabolic high-intensity interval training. And the thing about it is the intensity doesn't have to last for very long. So in other words, when you're doing Tabata training, you've got 20 seconds on and 10 seconds off. So within that 20 seconds, say you're doing jumping jacks. So for only a brief part, so maybe only about the last 4 or 5 jumping jacks are really going to be hard. And then you're going to get that 10-second rest. and then you're going to go right back in and start again. So it's the idea that we use self-selected intensity so that the exercise continues to have just a little bit of pleasure to it that isn't going to be a drag the whole time. Oh my goodness. So the other thing is variety. So I was the Turbulence Trainer of the Year way back in 2013, so more than 10 years ago. And during the time that I was a trainer and that I had my studio, I probably got 1,000 workouts in binders. And one of the things about it, if we look at this one that I'm pulling up right here, so this is all body weight. So let me just give you, okay, so this would be something that we called the Big 12. And Craig Ballantyne was my mentor, and he was the trainer who trained me. And he's gone in more to work in personal development and business development, but he was an amazing trainer and taught all kinds of amazing things. So workout number 4, the Big 12. So you'd start with bodyweight squats and then push-ups, and they could be elevated, jumping jacks, reverse lunges, inchworms, those are fun, run in place, mountain climbers, total body extensions, and then decline push-ups, and you finish by running in place again. So you don't need any equipment. So you're not needing to spend any money. You're not needing to go anywhere. You're right there in your own home. I talked to a trainer once who was working with a client who was really just off of the couch, had never exercised, was an older woman, and was really exercise averse. And his routine with her, he started their workouts, it's like, all right, you're just going to get down on the floor and then you're going to get back up again. And that would be their training. And he would come in and she'd get down on the floor and then she'd get back up. And it turns out he was absolutely right, because one of the most important tests on longevity, make sure that you're not going to die in the next year, is whether you can get down onto the floor and get back up again. And if you don't have to put a hand down, if you don't have to put a knee down or both of your hands to get up, that means there's less points taken off. So if you can get all the way down to the floor without using your hands, you get 5 points. And if you can get all the way back up again without using your hands, you get 5 points as well. So for a total of 10. Sadly, one of the things that I've noticed is that at age 61, I can definitely get down, and now I have to put a hand down. So I'm really working on getting back to being able to get up without using my hands. So we've talked a little bit about keeping your hips from breaking and keeping your wrists from breaking with exercise. And then I do want to touch a little bit on nutrition. One of the things that we've known much longer is that diabetes type 2, insulin resistance, definitely glucose intolerance is directly related to more bone fractures. One of the things you may notice is that more women than men are getting bone fractures. Like I said, the men end up in the hospital from the heart, the women end up in the hospital from broken bones. There is a real difference in the metabolic changes and the benefit that we get from exercise and weightlifting. So you guys who are out there doing, weight-bearing exercise and who are lifting weight, you are actually going to get more benefit to your muscles faster than women do. We maybe need to focus more and work harder in order to get those bone health and quality benefits, because our bodies react a little bit differently to exercise. But the other thing that we can do is manage what we're eating. And if you're following this channel, if you've come across me, you may know that I've been keto and carnivore since 2008. I went keto in 2008 and then started carnivore in 2018 and have pretty much stayed with it. We do grow food and we raise chickens. And one of the things I always say to people that I work with in terms of getting off of the processed foods is I say, shop the outer aisles. Good food goes bad, anything that you have to refrigerate, and nothing out of a bag or a box. But we are growing our own food and we're raising our own chickens. And I have found that the food and the fruit that we grow ourselves, I can usually tolerate a little bit better. However, now that I'm over 60, when I test my blood glucose in the morning, and I don't test it all the time, but a lot of times if I get into the carbs or I eat fruits or vegetables, I will test it. And it doesn't take very much anymore to put me in that pre-diabetic range in the morning and to completely end my nutritional ketosis. Because I find that my mood, my energy, all of the things that I need as a woman over 60 who wants to keep going and keep working, that if I'm eating too many carbohydrates, it just doesn't work. And the other thing is that if I'm, focusing on fat and protein more and some above the ground vegetables, and I do have my Bragg's apple cider vinegar and a little lemon juice every day, I just have so much more energy. One of the things that's kind of unfair is we get later on in our life, we have one son, and he's grown and has a full-time job now, and graduated from community college this year, but he doesn't need caretaking the way he used to. And so now my husband and I have all this time to grow food, raise chickens, to do all of the things that we want to do around the house. And we have to remember to maintain our energy. And so this kind of training, then also eating a low carb nutrition plan, especially one that keeps me in nutritional ketosis, gives me astonishing amounts of energy. And the other thing that I deal with is I'm in long-term recovery from a substance use disorder, and those substances are, or were, sugar, cigarettes, shopping, and Chardonnay. And staying keto and staying carnivore absolutely helped me to never get back into those substances. And then also training. The other thing about getting into training and working out and doing the kind of exercise that's going to keep your bones healthy is you have to connect what you're doing for exercise to what you do that you enjoy in your life. For me, obviously, it's shuffle dancing. You've probably seen some of my shuffle dance on this channel. But for many of you, is it gardening? Is it golfing? Do you have kids or grandkids? If you're younger, I really started to deal with, I was obese, and I started dealing with obesity issues in my mid to late 30s. So I was pretty young then, and so it wasn't about, wanting to play with grandchildren then. It was literally about, wanting to have a good career and have a good life. Also, I have to admit, it was also about appearance. When I first started training, I started with transformation contests. I got my certification in 2012, and from 2010 to about 2014 was the heyday of internet transformation contests. I won a transformation contest back in 2008. I won $2,000, and I lost 6 dress sizes. It was crazy in 12 weeks. Only 14 pounds, but I lost 6 sizes. And then I was, briefly kind of an internet celebrity. And then during that time, I ran these transformation contests for my clients. And they would include, before pictures in a swimsuit and after pictures in a swimsuit, and, really focusing on looking hotter and improving your appearance. And now looking back, it's completely changed. It's not about how I look anymore. It's literally about independence, about personal freedom, because I don't want to end up in a nursing home. And like anybody, I know lots of women say this. We're all like, I don't want to be a burden. And we have one son. We got one kid. If something happens to me or my husband, I want to stay independent, and I don't want to be a burden on our one son. And so I'm doing everything I can to stay independent and stay really active and functional. And I want the same thing for you. I have a motto, it's like the golden rule, and it is we receive what we want for others. And by sharing my research and by sharing my training and nutrition, I have found that it helps me stay healthy. So a lot of information is going to be at catherinetraining.com. Sugar Freedom is there, which is my diet program. No sugar, no grains, no processed oils. And then a lot of these workouts are there as well. So you can go to catherinetraining.com and just scroll through. It is not a great website. I'm a control freak, so I don't really want to give anybody else control over my website, but it does have workouts and nutrition plans for getting off of sugar and then getting into training, the kind of training that you're going to be excited about and that you want to keep doing for life. Because the people that I know, the clients that I know who've overcome obesity and who've come into recovery from sugar addiction and everything else, they found a way to love training and connect it to the things that they love to do, especially their families. So I'm going to be wrapping up this live. Pretty much this is my introduction to this focus on, it's not about looks anymore, it's about independence and freedom. So really for the rest of the year up until we get to the holiday season, past Halloween, once we get past October into November, my focus always shifts to helping people who who use sugar as a substance to help them stay off of sugar during the holidays. But up until that point, I'm really going to be focusing on bone health and independence. So there's another study, and I have a study listed on my website, and this is the relationship between metabolic syndrome and bone health, and it evaluates the studies and the mechanisms involved. So what I want to leave you with as well is the brand new research that is showing that bone, we know that the skeletal muscle is endocrine and it affects the bone, but the bone, as it breaks down, the osteoblasts and the osteoclasts, as they turn over, they're causing metabolic changes and they're sending signals to your metabolism that are helping you to stay lean and young and healthy. And from an evolutionary standpoint, it makes perfect sense, because the body that is active, that is moving, that is enthusiastic, that is continuing to build muscle, what you're saying is that this is somebody who needs to stay alive. They're probably helping their tribe. They have something important to do. They're highly functional. And so everything works to keep that individual mentally and physically healthy so that they keep going and so that they keep serving their community. Because as I talk about being over 60, being in my third act, because I'm also a theater person, act 1 is up to 30, act 2, 30 to 60, and then this third act is 60 to 90, one to be of service. I was pretty concerned with, myself and looking better and changing my body in order to be more attractive, more appealing, get better jobs, because I was an actor and a dancer. And that has really, really transformed and really changed into from service to self, from wanting to be, a better and more powerful and more successful person, into, this 60 to 90 age range of wanting to be of service to my community and not be a burden. And so those 3 kinds of exercise: weight bearing, resistance, and then the balance and flexibility. But always, I want to leave you with this, that the key that unlocked the cage of addiction for me, addiction to sugar, cigarettes, Chardonnay, and shopping, the key that turned that and unlocked my life was high intensity interval training. When I started to train, I got my insulin resistance down, I got my inflammation down, and then I was able to manage my appetite, and then everything just got on a positive cycle, and everything just got better and better. And here I am from 2008 to 2025, free of sugar, free of obesity, and thank goodness, not with a broken hip like my sisters, my mother, and my ancestors. So until next time, be well, eat for yourself, and if you want to learn more of this, you can go to catherinetraining.com, and I'll continue to be back with my body weight exercises, resistant exercises, and of course, still making my shuffle shorts because I love to dance. All right, thanks for being here, everybody. Take care, and I'll see you next time.